I'm currently working as a community mental health nurse for NHS Trust, part of Leeds and York Partnerships. I qualified in September last year, so I actually qualified during the pandemic. And do you know what? I can't actually believe I'm here, if that makes sense, even though I'm sat here in my nurse's uniform in front of you. I think looking back, there's been such key points for me to get here. I could start at the beginning. I went back into education at 35 because I'd worked in jobs that I wasn't really happy with, that just fit around my children. I was a single mum for a while, so I just did little bar jobs, little cleaning jobs, got a job in an office, which I was very, very well paid, but it didn't help me with my mental health. I was quite unwell due to the pressures of work in the office. So I went and worked for a lady as a personal assistant, something I'd never done before. Worked with her for about 18 months. She moved to Scotland, and at first I was commuting to Scotland and staying there for a week at a time. And then she lost the funding, and I'd said to her, look, I'd love to get into nursing. And she was like, well, why don't you? And I was like, well, I've got no English or maths GCSEs. I was 35 at the time. And she went, well, go do them then. And I was like, I'm too old. And she went, only person stopping is you. And I took a lot from that. I just signed up at Leeds City College. Because I'd worked in offices, I'd worked in like a financial sector, I thought my maths will be spot on, my English will be spot on. I've wrote letters to ombudsman level, and I've dealt with insurance claims up to £50,000. Little did I know that my basic maths left a lot to be desired, and my basic English left a lot to be desired. So I had to start, when I signed up at college, I had to go in, I went in at level 2 English. I don't know if it's changed now, the levels, but that meant I had to do 2 years of English to get my GCSE, and I had to go in at entry level for maths, so I had to do 3 years of maths to obtain my GCSE. And I can remember the day vividly, and we were doing our GCSEs, and I think, and I always get them the wrong way around, Olivia, it wasn't Olivia, it was Fiona that had come to Leeds City College that day, and if it were Olivia, I apologise in advance, to tell us about the open days, what the Lifelong Learning Centre were running for students to support and guide them with the GCSEs. It was a free opportunity to go, and they also coaxed us with free food and drink, which for me was a winner. But I got there, and there was a lot of current students that came in to talk to us, so we did a lot about GCSEs, and there was so much that I still didn't know going forward into my exams, that it gave me some really important information for me to complete my exams. But for me, it was one of the students that came in who was doing a mental health nursing degree. He was actually at the Lifelong Learning Centre, but going on to mental health nursing. And he spoke about his journey, which is what the Lifelong Learning Champions used to do. And it was something that he said, and I think it were because at that day, meeting people that come from similar backgrounds to me. So I don't come from a really wealthy family. I don't come from a really wealthy area. I was brought up in quite a I know you don't say working class anymore, it's more of a diverse background, but I was born and bred in Airels. My dad was a postman, my mum worked in a factory. And it wasn't my lifelong ambition to really educate myself or go into education, because it's just not what people did. So seeing people that sort of resonated with me, and I sort of could see a connection between me at university, that was when I thought, do you know what, I think I could do this. And I applied, and yeah. And I went and spoke to Mohammed. There was a lady called MJ that used to speak to us, and Mohammed. I had a meeting with Mohammed, and at that time I was still waiting on my English GCSE results. So I had some conditions. I did the Kickstart programme through the Lifelong Learning Centre, which was like a 6-week programme, I think, through the summer. Or was it the Jumpstart? It would Kickstart or Jumpstart, I can't remember. I did that through the summer, but I had to, and I got a place at the Lifelong Learning Centre, but that did meet some criteria. So I did have to have my English GCSE, and I did have to complete some of the things through the Kickstart programme. But the amount of support I got, I didn't ever feel overwhelmed at that stage. I felt more overwhelmed getting my GCSEs than I did being in uni. So the following year, the Lifelong Learning Centre, I did biology because I didn't have any science GCSEs. So I did biology and data processing, which is all about analysing data, why you get that data. And I just seemed to, everything just seemed to slot into place. It was really hard. I'm never going to sit here and say it's easy, but if you do put that work in, and I know it's a cliche, if you put the blood, sweat and tears in, which there was plenty of blood, sweat and tears on my part, you will get there. The only thing that hung over my head, which I can remember the sicky feeling, so when I'd completed the lifelong learning journey, I was still doing my maths GCSE in the same year, so I was doing 2 courses at once. And I applied. I didn't realise at the time that I could apply for a lot of other universities. I just wanted to go to Leeds because of how brilliant the Lifelong Learning Centre was. And I applied with another couple of colleagues, and I was the only successful one from my year at the Lifelong Learning Centre that got onto the mental health nursing. I know there were some general nurses, a lot of general nurses and some midwives. But for me, it was waiting on my maths, because I felt like if I don't get that, that's going to put a stop on me going where I want to be. But then when I got my maths and I got accepted to the School of Healthcare at Leeds University in an old red brick building, I still felt, I'll be honest with you, that I was sort of like playing make-believe a little bit, like, God, what am I doing here? Look at it. But then when you actually go, it's not all upper class people that go to university. There's such a diverse amount of people. I mean, there was me and another girl that were in the 40s. By the time I finished, I was 45, but there were a couple of us in the 40s. There were a lot of guys in the 30s, so it wasn't all younger students. But you know what, now that I'm not at uni, and I can't believe I'm saying this, I miss the studying. My sister's like, I do miss the studying. I didn't at the time when I'd be throwing tears and tantrums getting all my assignments in, but I think that was just because I'd gone into the profession that I'd chosen. A lot of other courses, obviously, you're not on placement, so I was doing coursework exams at the side of working and placements and home life. But yes, so from the age of 35 to 45, I've just turned, no, not 45, I'm 44. In the space of like 7-8 years, I went from having no qualifications to becoming a band 5 mental health nurse with a degree from Leeds University, and I still can't believe it. It gave me more confidence in myself. I think at school I was always seen as a bit of a clown, even though because I went to like 3 schools where I lived. We had primary, middle and high school. So for me, my formative years, I felt, were the middle school years, and I was in quite a lot of the top groups in middle school. But then around that time, I had a lot of family things going on, so I feel like my education slipped through. And I'm not making excuses through no fault of my own, but I think there were a lot of family dynamics going on at home that made me probably go from being like a good student to just dipping. What I did find out, and it was through you guys at the Lifelong Learning Centre, there were a lot of things that were highlighted in some of the work that I was submitting. I found it hard to concentrate. I found it hard to study. It wasn't with you guys. It was when I'd gone to the School of Healthcare in the big lecture halls at the time when there were like 300-400 students. I felt like it was taking me 3 times as long to process things. And I spoke to the Lifelong Learning Centre, and they sent me for some tests doing it would prove that I had dyspraxia and slight dyslexia as well. So I didn't find that out until I was in my 40s. So I think once I found that out and provisions were put in place, it made me learning a little bit easier. Because prior to that, I felt like other people were getting things and it just wasn't sticking. And I think it was just down my dyspraxia, and I've got like a hearing cognition problem, which I wasn't aware of. But because you guys brought it to light and then I got the support I needed, it made my journey that much easier. And there was always support there, education-wise, like through the library and things. There's always support there if anybody needs it. You're never on your own. I hated education. I found it really difficult. I think a lot of the teachers that I had probably didn't have the passion for it. And I think when you come to uni, when you're at college, I feel, maybe I'm wrong, but the teachers that work in them environments, I've got a passion for what they're doing. And that's what made my experience at uni so different to school. That I think at school you're all trained to, this is how you learn and this is what you do and you do it this way. But when you're at uni, it's like everything. Right, Tracy, why are you thinking that way? You need to investigate why you're thinking that. It's not that I'm told how to do something. I've got to investigate it myself and prove why I found that information out. And that's what I loved about uni. And at school, I don't think you get that. It's just copy what's in this book and it's done. And I think maybe my brain found that sort of education boring. And that's why I never gelled with it when I was younger. And I love that. And if I write something, just because it might be wrong, but if I've got or someone might think, well, that's wrong, Tracy, but if I've got evidence to back up what I'm writing about, then that is why my argument's for. You might write something that's an argument against, and you might have evidence to back up that. And that's where the debating comes in. And that's what I loved about uni, that it were never right or wrong. I hated school. I loved uni, and I can't believe I'm saying that, because when I was there, some days I hated it, I'll be honest. I miss it. I really miss it. Just because you haven't been successful at a young age does not mean that you can't do it at any stage in your life. I, hand on heart, feel that if I'd have even tried to do it in my mid-20s, late 20s, I don't think that time would have been right for me, because I had a lot of other factors going on in my life. And I think with mature students, that's where a lot of it comes in, that you have got other external factors that might prevent you from doing it. But if you've got a passion in you and you want to, I always wanted to be a nurse, always. So I would say to old Tracy, your time might not be now, but your time will come. And I don't think I was strong enough mentally myself years ago to do what I've done. I think I came in at it was just like things seemed to just come in at the right time for me. And yeah, so I'd say it's never too late, ever. And I think for me, being on the course that I were on, there were other students on there that were in the 60s, 70s, who went on to do degrees. So for me, I feel like I was a young one when I'm sat outside of my peers that are in the 60s and 70s. So yeah, it's never too late. Just do it. Just do it. The main things are for adults are family, supportive family, depending on if you've got issues yourself, if you've got struggles with your own children, or you're trying to support them with education and things, I think it could be quite overwhelming to take too much on. I think finances, but as we all know, or people may not know, when you get to uni, they just sort of help you with your finances. You don't have to do anything on your own. So for me, at first I thought, I can't give up my job. I can't give up my job and go. But then once it worked out, yeah, I wasn't as well off while I was doing my degree, but that was because I chose not to work on top of doing other things. I could have worked, but I chose not to at that time. So I think if you get to that stage in your life and you think it's now or never, just do it. But I do think you've got to have strong connections around you to support you through it. And I think maybe that's why a lot of mature students do fall out of education again, because they just haven't got the support there at home. I do remember clearly, because I was a young mum, I was pregnant at 15, people saying, well, your life's over, that's it now, that's it, what are you going to do with your life? And maybe in my subconscious somewhere, it's a bit of a two-fingered salute to people to say, well, there you go, that's what I've done, where are you? Still sat doing whatever job or you've been doing for years, and I've just got a degree. So I think for me, it was sheer and utter resilience, determination, and I think I wanted to prove it to myself. I felt inside that I had more to give as well. Yeah, so I think for me, I think I can be quite stubborn. I think maybe it was stubbornness, but I'd like to say it's determination and resilience. I think you've got to be very, very resilient as a mature student. But yeah, resilience, and just to say to everybody, well, my life won't over, Warwick, look at what I'm doing now.